Hey, family, this is Dr. William Clark here. Glad to be with you guys for this rebroadcast of how to manage your nonprofit through difficult times. Now, on the screen, you'll see in a few moments a title of this talk, a subtitle, which was really leadership versus management, and how do you determine the difference? How do you enact one skill over the other, and why? But the broader topic around managing a nonprofit through difficult times was the theme of this talk because prior to what most of us experienced around COVID, many nonprofits were still struggling how to figure out how to raise money and how to sustain their operations and how to become more dynamic in their program offerings. And so we gave this talk to a number of nonprofits around the state. And it was a great conversation back then. It's a great conversation now. So with that being said, I want you to tune into this conversation. Turn the sound up because there's no video, but it is audio. And you can listen to this conversation. My hope is that it connects with you. My hope is that it meets some of the needs that you're trying to resolve, questions that you have. I hope some of them are answered in this broadcast. With that being said, let's jump into our talk.
Okay. So let's get started. Management versus leadership. Some of you know me, some of you don't know me. My name is Dr. William Clark, and I hail from Philadelphia, actually. I've been in Connecticut for the past 3 to 4 years. I moved here a couple years ago, and that's where I met people like Paulette, working for Workforce Solutions. But my doctorate degree is earned, by the way, which is a distinction, and it's in strategic leadership. So some of the stuff that I'm talking about today is stuff that I've been studying for quite a while and will continue to study and research. But I am the Vice President of Strategic Initiatives at Career Resources. Part of my portfolio is overseeing the STRIVE program, which you'll hear some about today. We have 6 program sites, which is an achievement for us. It's a big deal, and I'll go further into that a little later. And then probably as a point of reference, I've written a couple of books, but the book that I talk about the most is a book called Sustainable, and it's based upon what Scott just talked about. About 2011, I was an associate administrator at a church in Philadelphia, and in September 2011, Hurricane Irene hit Philadelphia pretty hard, and it created a hole, literally a hole in the church, probably the size of the back wall. That Thursday morning, my father called me. He's a grown man, by the way, and I've never heard my dad cry. He called me that morning and he said, you need to get down to the church because there's a hole in the wall. Now, mind you, I don't know what he was talking about because I just woke up the kids and whatnot. He said, no, literally there's a hole in the wall. When I got there, it was almost like the tomb of Jesus. You ever seen like the tomb just like move out of the way and there's a big gaping hole in the mountain? That's what it was like. And it was emotional because there was a whole lot of memories that went down the drain with that flood. Saw my dad cry, saw a lot of men his age cry because he grew up in that church and he raised me in that church. And we didn't know, but there was an abandoned car between our church and another church. And we peeked in and there was nothing. It was just a car that got caught in the flood. Come to find out, the daughter of a police officer who got caught in the flood, it was a flash flood, somehow got tangled up in a blanket and was found hours later in the trunk. She drowned. It was a devastating time of history in Philadelphia. At that time, we also found out our church in Germantown, if you know anything about Philadelphia, was built upon a creek that nobody knew about. And we only found out about it because of this flood. And they brought this old map where we found the creek where it stretched from Mount Airy to Germantown and to other communities. So it was a devastating time. Concurrently, I started my doctoral research that year. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to research. And it was during that crisis, we were trying to find a new place. We didn't have a lot of money, that I began to think about how can this church sustain? Because at that time, I did know I was going to move to Connecticut. But I didn't know when. But I wanted to make sure the church was sustainable. And that's kind of how I started on this journey of sustainability. How can nonprofits and churches sustain? And I think part of it is what Scott talked about. And a lot of it also is about people like you. You guys matter for your organizations to sustain. So that book goes into depth in terms of some of those principles. I'll cover some of that today. But that's kind of the backstory of that book. All right. So the question you might be asking yourself is, why this conference? Why were you invited to some other organization's conference or conversation about leadership? Well, 2017 happened, and a lot of it is what Scott already said, right? A lot of nonprofits were dealing with layoffs and closures, right? A lot of nonprofits, probably some of your organizations, were getting ready to deal with reduced payments from the state or other funders. I mean, we were just caught off guard. Last year was tough for CRI, and I saw Scott, navigate through that, but it wasn't easy. And I'm sure at your agencies it wasn't easy either to project out how much money you'll have for the next 6 months to pay bills, to pay salaries. Some of you may not even be a part of those conversations, but you may have been on the brink of losing your job or your career, which in fact may impact your home life. Organizations were dealing with reduced payment issues, delayed payments, which is just as bad as reducing payments. It already takes a while to get your money after you provided a service, right? But imagine being told instead of 60 days, you got to wait 90 days or 180 days. And people like Scott, and I'll throw Paulette in there as well, they don't want to see people lose their jobs. So organizations are floating on credit to keep you working. All the while, they're trying to get money so that they can put money back to the coffers. That's a dangerous place to be for any organization, for profit or nonprofit. And then lastly, trying to plan for delays. That sometimes mean laying off folks, reducing costs for real estate, reducing expenses elsewhere. And staff sometimes struggle with that because staff downstream don't understand the decisions that go into managing a business. And if you didn't know, a nonprofit is a business. The state, the city is a business. It's no different from any other for-profit business. But it became difficult. And as a result, nonprofits needed to tighten their belts, adjust budgets, in some cases reduce salaries, unfortunately, lay off folks, change plans of expansion, or just nix plans of expansion altogether. Some nonprofits had to figure out how to improve performance with less staff, doing more with less. And the nonprofit community is notorious for that. Squeezing you for every ounce of energy you have to do more, and you didn't get a pay increase for the past 7 years. I think we all can relate to that. Scott, I need a raise. That's not how you actually, but then also nonprofits had to figure out how to focus on their core strengths. A lot of nonprofits had to get out of business streams that they're not really good at. If you've been a part of a nonprofit, you've been a part of the process of applying for grants that is not a part of your core competency. And therefore, we call that scope creep. And during 2017, you saw a lot of nonprofits focus more on their core competency. But in spite of all of that, what happened last year, and it will happen again, don't know when, but it will happen again, the thing that's constant is leadership. The thing that will keep your organization going and stable is leadership. Nonprofit organizations are important for our communities. They create balance. They create purpose. They create meaning for the communities that we serve. If you didn't know it, the members in your community rely upon your nonprofit. In many cases, they can't afford the services that you provide for free. And if your door is closed, what will happen to your clients? What will happen to your community? What will happen to the assets in the community, the resources in the community? What will happen if your door is closed? Here's another thought. It's reasonable to expect nonprofits to have solid leadership that not only can manage the books and keep the doors open, but also develop other leaders that can provide vision support in the marketplace. If your organization doesn't have multiple layers of leaders, not in title, but in function, your nonprofit is dead. And as an emerging leader, if you're a mid-management leader, it's your job to figure out how to get better at doing what you do so that your organization can survive and sustain. What would happen if your CEO became incapacitated or left for a while? How would your organization function? He said it's over. In some cases, it is over.
In other cases, it wouldn't matter at all.
In other cases, it wouldn't matter at all.
Certain.
And I would argue that it might not matter at all if you had other leaders at other levels,
Right.
who are competent, not necessarily only in their job, but in leadership. Because there's a difference between management and leadership. We've seen the uniqueness of nonprofits. I would say around this room, each and every one of you do something unique and different. We've seen that, and it's portrayed in your grant applications. However, on the ground operations of your nonprofit tell a different story. We have a couple of funders in the room, and they'll tell you that your grant application sounds great. But if they did a spot checkup on your operations, there would be a whole lot of questions for you to answer. Because there's an absence of leadership even on the ground, even on the front line. That's dangerous for your nonprofit. Even if your nonprofit is healthy, if you have poor or negligent leadership on the ground, that can lead to loss of funding, loss of jobs, loss of contracts, loss of relationships. Lastly, I got two more. Strong operations of a nonprofit organization are true performance, whereas true performance realized it. And lastly, the truth behind high-performing nonprofits is undergirded by strong leadership development within a nonprofit. If you see a healthy organization that's performing well, 9 times out of 10 is because there's strong leadership from top to bottom. There are folks who are focused on doing the right thing and the good thing. Leaders are necessary for your organization to survive. If nobody ever told you that, this is the conference where you'll learn that. Leaders are necessary for survival. Developing leaders is essential for success. You're essential for success. If nobody ever affirmed your importance, I'm telling you, you are important. Even if you're not the top person or the next to the top person, your role as a mid-level person or an emerging leader is important. You are essential. And leadership is all about influence. That's a simple definition of leadership. Leadership is the ability to influence people or organizations to achieve a goal. Leadership is not about you follow me and do as I say. Leadership is not about telling people what to do. Leadership is about influence. Even if you're not leading a team, many of you are leading programs, and you're influencing people that you're serving to do something. And that something is likely to improve their quality of life. If you're not a quality leader in your program, your clients will tell that story and they will vote with their feet. Your numbers will suffer. Your reports will be lackluster. Leadership is all about influence. If you can't influence the folks that you're working with or who's working for you or the people you're serving, your program's done. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
The question you got to be asking now, well, what is management? Management simply just reduces chaos in organizations to make them run more effectively and efficiently. Management focuses on planning, organizing, staffing, and controlling. That is totally separate from influence. Management makes simple what seems complex. Leaders push people into a direction. Perhaps what you've been doing all this time in your career is managing, which is great, because we need managers. But I'm arguing today that our nonprofits need more than just managers. We need more leaders who are influencing every element of our organization. If you look at the topics that we're going to be covering in the next 2 days, those are various elements of influence. Your marketing, your branding. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about telling your story. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the one-stops and how they impact the workforce system, which is the business that we're in.
Hey, family, I just wanted to cut in real quick into this talk and just say hey and remind you that this is an audio-only broadcast. I want to encourage you to turn the sound up and listen to this important conversation. The hope is that these resources, this conversation about how to manage your nonprofit through difficult times is connecting with you. If you haven't done so already, I want you to share this broadcast by sharing it on your timeline timeline. Share it with someone that you know who is in the nonprofit industry. Maybe it's you, but don't be selfish. Go ahead and share this with somebody who you connect with who needs to hear this message. Again, this is an audio-only broadcast. Turn the sound all the way up. One more thing. As you're going through this conversation that I'm having with a bunch of leaders around the state, I want you to leave your comments below. Let me know what's going through your mind. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what you're processing. Let me know what you're starting to resolve as you start to hear the various components of leadership versus management and how to interact between the two, but also how to implement one or the other, or sometimes both, so that you can lead your organization through challenging times. With that being said, let's get back to our broadcast.
You're not influencing that to make a difference in the life of your client. You're not leading. You might be managing. Change led by a leader should produce a shift within the organization, whether it's culture, whether it's performance, or your values. There should be shifts happening within your sphere of influence if you're a leader. Now, it's different when you're not sitting at the top of the food chain. I get it, right? There's a limit to what you can do. But whatever you are in control of, there should be a constant shift. If you're just a case manager, your client should be shifting towards quality life change because of you. In the case of Strive, if you're a trainer, people should be experiencing a theoretical change in their thinking, in their attitude because of leadership. Because leadership says, I'm going to influence you with good information, good counsel, good experiential information to make sure that you got all that you need to make the shift. However, if you're just a manager and you're training in Strive, all you're going to do is just follow the curriculum from beginning to end, and there's no connection between you and the client. If you're just a case manager who's just managing a client, you're going to schedule them, you're going to get them in the door, you're going to get them out, and then move on to the next person, making no connection and making no difference in the life of the client. And that's just at the front lines. What about if you're a program manager? How do you influence everybody under your sphere of influence to do more, to do better, to improve quality, to improve performance? You can't do that through management. I mean, management is a function. It brings chaos into order, but it doesn't cause people to want to do more. It doesn't shift culture. It doesn't shift value systems. It doesn't shift the way people think. One of the things that frustrates me about the nonprofit community, and this is my personal opinion, sometimes I feel like we get the leftover people who don't care about social services. Scott said, get out. And that's the nice way of saying it. But I feel like people fall into social services or nonprofit organizations because they couldn't make it anywhere. It's not a conscious decision to work for a nonprofit. And because of that, I feel like we have some of the most underperforming people in our organizations. And it's pervasive from top to bottom. It doesn't have to be that way. You should want to work in your agency. You should make a conscious decision that I want this job, or I want this industry, or I want to stay here and grow within this organization. But it begins with wanting to see a shift, a change, an adjustment. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Good management provides order and consistency. It fixes what's broken. Some of you are excellent at that. You can see a problem, just solve it. You can create widgets, you can create a time schedule, you can create a process, and that's all great. But that's totally different from shifting a culture. Because you can fix one problem and it can go back to where it was if there was never a shift in the culture and the way people think, and the way people perceive the work, and the way people attack the work. In Strive, one of the biggest challenges, Scott told me a number of things when I took the job, but one of the things he said to me, it has to get fixed. Like, Strive is great, but there's something broken about it. A part of the function that was broken maybe was the management of it, that's cool. We could have done a better job at how we did intake with clients and how we spent our time training clients and how we engaged our partners. So we did do a good job of that, and I'll talk about that later. But the biggest problem I saw was that Strive had this culture that was just not moving forward. What I saw was a culture that was hypocritical of what we taught our clients. We taught our clients to walk into work with a great attitude and to how to navigate conflict. We give them great advice. I mean, the curriculum works. I mean, really, if you've never been part of Strive, you should go. It literally works. But then, once the class is over, there'll be a whole lot of fighting and bickering and arguing and non-performance in our own team across the state. That's a broken culture, and management cannot fix that. I'm arguing today that your organization needs you to lead and to create shifts in your programs, in your agencies, on the roundtables you're serving, in the classroom or in the meeting room with the clients you're serving. Shifts. Not more order. I'm sure you have a degree in management or social work and they teach you how to do that. That's cool. But shifts is where you want to see a change happen. Gone are the days are underperforming. Gone are the days of allowing people to get by. I'm talking about people on your team. And they're not held accountable. Gone are the days of we accepting people who don't want to be here because we need a body, we need to spend this money on a salary. No. Gone are the days that we feel desperate to hire just anybody because we feel overwhelmed. I challenge you to stop it. Matter of fact, I dare you to stop it. Stop hiring folks who don't fit the culture shift you're trying to build. Stop it. If that means you got to do extra work for a couple extra months, so be it. It is not worth it. Some of you have seen the damaging effects of hiring and selecting the wrong people in your team. They have dragged you down more than they did when you didn't have anybody filling that role. It's better off you doing it by yourself than you hiring the wrong folks. Create a shift. Not more order, not bringing chaos in. No, create shifts. Your clients depend wholly on this shift. Here's another challenge I saw within Strive. Our clients came in, they walked in, and while the rumor, which is true, once a part of Strive, always a part of Strive, you can come in years later and still get services, our clients didn't really have a respect for the office space. I mean, they would come in loud and rambunctious, cursing, dressed in any type of way, the antithesis of what we taught. And the reason why was not because they didn't learn the Strive curriculum, but because we allowed it. I dare you to walk into your doctor's office acting like that. I dare you to go to your doctor's office without an appointment and you're not sick and expect to be seen right now. Go to your barber, go to your beauty salon, go to your nail salon without an appointment and you see the whole room filled and expect to be seen right now. Our clients make us feel like we have to drop everything to serve them. No. A part of the instruction of learning how to live different is to create a shift in our clients. How they treat themselves, how they treat others, how they view life. And when you drop everything at a dime to see a client and you don't have the time or they're not scheduled to see you at this moment, you're reinforcing those bad habits. You need to see a shift from top to bottom. You may be wondering, oh, hey, it's easy for you to say because you're the VP or he's the CEO or she's the CEO. No, it can happen even at your level. A shift with everything that's under your purview. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
I can tell you right now. I'm going to put my team on the spot. We have a funder in the room, and I'm proud to be partnered with CWP. I already have a relationship with Kelly and her boss. Like that's already done. The pressure is actually on my team because I've already proven my value. My team is now responsible for proving a shift to the funder. If you're wondering how grant works, and you're responsible for a grant project, your boss has already done their job. It's your job now to make that shift happen, to see the results happen, because it will show up in your numbers or the lack thereof. Funders aren't stupid. When you see low numbers, there's a problem. And oftentimes it's with the organization, not with the client. Create a shift. Here's the difference between management and leaders. You see management on the left side, leadership on the right side. Managers plan and budget. Let me just say this again. Leaders can be managers. Not all managers can be leaders. So you'll notice some of these trends and some real good leaders that you know, they can do both. They can play on both sides of the fence. But it's really hard for a manager to be a leader. Okay? Managers plan and budget. That means they establish agendas, set timetables, and allocate resources. Meanwhile, leaders establish direction. They provide a vision, big picture. They set strategies. I'm gonna tell you what she says.
Hey, family, I just wanted to cut in real quick into this talk and just say hey and remind you that this is an audio-only broadcast. I want to encourage you to turn the sound up and listen to this important conversation. My hope is that these resources, this conversation about how to manage your nonprofit through difficult times, is connecting with you. If you haven't done so already, I want you to share this broadcast by sharing it on your timeline. Share it with someone that you know who is in the nonprofit industry. Maybe it's you, but don't be selfish. Go ahead and share this with somebody who you connect with, who needs to hear this message. Again, this is an audio-only broadcast. Turn the sound all the way up. One more thing. As you're going through this conversation that I'm having with a bunch of leaders around the state, I want you to leave your comments below. Let me know what's going through your mind. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what you're processing. And let me know what you're starting to resolve as you start to hear the various components of leadership versus management and how to interact between the two, but also how to implement one or the other, or sometimes both, so that you can lead your organization through challenging times. With that being said, let's get back to our broadcast.
I worry about tomorrow all the time. I live in tomorrow. I live in next year. Right? That's me. Then she says, but you need somebody to be in the moment. That's what a manager's for. It's a clear difference. When you worry about tomorrow, you have a vision for where you see your organization going. You have a vision for where you see your clients going. Tomorrow matters just as much as today. Managers organize staff. They provide structure, make job placements, establish rules and procedures. Leaders, they do something different. They align people. They communicate goals, seek commitment, build teams and coalitions. Instead of hiring and focus on the hiring piece, my job is to figure out what you're really good at and to braid that together with the skill sets of other people in the team so that we can accomplish more. It's a different hiring tactic. It's no longer about just a job description. While that's great, it's about fit. It's about the uniqueness you bring to the table that can make a difference for the vision I have for the organization. And if you're wondering why you probably didn't get hired at this other place, perhaps it's fit. Perhaps the person making a decision is thinking about something much bigger than your degree, bigger than your achievement, bigger than what you've been doing. Perhaps is what you bring into the table or not. Managers control, get this, I know y'all know some controlling people. Managers control and they solve problems. They develop incentives, they generate and create solutions, and they take corrective action. Leaders, they motivate and inspire. They energize. They satisfy unmet needs. They try to figure out what's missing so that they can connect with you. Managers are more abstract, They're more like, let's just follow the letter of the law. Leaders, they try to find a personal connection. And if you haven't been in a leadership role, think about the personal connection you've developed with your clients. It's just that thing that we have. It's different from other people, but when that client sees you, it's a thing. It makes them want to do more. It makes them answer the phone when they've changed their phone number 7 times. It's that thing that makes them bring back the verification forms you need when if somebody else calls, they won't bring it. It's a thing. It's real. In organizations, it's real too. For Scott and I, it's real. How we connect with people, it matters. That's a big difference between management and leadership. Here's what some of the leading thinkers are saying about management and leadership. To manage means to accomplish activities, master routines, whereas to lead means to influence others and create visions of change. Managers create routines, Leaders, they create visions. Managers are people who do the right thing. Managers are people who do things right. Leaders are people who do the right thing. It's a big difference. Rosa says leadership is a multi-directional influence. A relationship and management is an unidirectional authority relationship. Leaders see relationships in multiple directions. Managers is just a one way. Whereas leadership is concerned with the process of developing multiple purposes, management is directed towards coordinating activities in order to get a job done. Some of you I know from other places. Some of you I know from the Waterbury Reentry Roundtable. Some of you I know from New Britain. Some of you I know from Hartford. You see me because I have different interests that I need to satisfy for my team. It's a give and take. Whereas managers, it's a one-lane highway to get the job done. Managers are reactive, which is dangerous for any nonprofit, any business. But managers are reactive. They only respond when things go wrong. Or when the funder says, hey, where's your report? Or, hey, your numbers are low. Managers start to kick in. They prefer to work with people to solve problems, but do so with low emotional involvement. You ever work hard on a problem with somebody and they just don't care? They're just blah. They're not mentally and emotionally invested.
Yeah.
I mean, we in church, you can say amen too, right? They just don't care. Leaders, on the other hand, are emotionally active and involved. They're animated. They give of themselves. They're drained not by the work, but by the giving process. They seek to shape ideas instead of responding to them. I can't tell you how many times in meetings with my team, I could care less about the complaint coming from funders or clients, but about how we can reshape the thinking of our clients and our funders. And it's not about doing some Jedi mind trick. No, it's about changing perception, changing viewpoints, and improving what we do at the same time, so that our clients and our funders, our stakeholders, they're all satisfied. And we are performing in a comfortable lane where we're really good at. Leadership seek to shape ideas instead of responding to them, and they act to expand available options to solve long-standing problems. Leaders change the way people think about what is possible. As a little kid says in the movie, it can happen. You're not limited just because you work for a, quote, nonprofit. You're not less than because you work for a, quote, nonprofit. You can do anything. It can happen. You sell that dream to your clients, and you want them to believe it. You help them think differently about how they pursue life and education, family change, income status change. Some of you work with second chance citizens, and you help them rethink what the future is like, even though they've been in prison for a number of years. It can happen for them. Why not for your agency? Why is it that we are hypocritical in selling the dream to our clients, but we don't live it on our jobs every day? It can happen. Anything is possible. This is why partnerships matter. This is why the roundtables matter. Don't you know, I've wanted to see a conference happen among other social service providers. This is not necessarily the first time we did it. The first time we did it was actually 3-4 months ago at the Waterbury conference. How many people were there? You were there. Well, you were part of the planning process, right? The Success Conference in Waterbury.
Yes, it was. Duh.
He was like, no, that wasn't me.
So if you haven't heard of it, it was a smashing success. And it was a conference designed not for professionals, but it was designed for people coming back home from prison. I couldn't do that on my own because that's way out of scope for me. But if I can toot my horn for a moment, who suggested the idea? I knew Scott wasn't going to go for it. Right? If I said, Scott, I want to do this, there was no time, no money for it. But Scott did release me to go to the Reentry Roundtable and get deeply involved. That was a huge opportunity to see something happen that I wanted to see happen. Guess who was the keynote speaker? Scott. Guess who ran most of the operations for the event? Strive and CRI. Guess who had a great time? Guess who learned a lot? Guess whose life was changed? Guess who signed up for more classes in Waterbury? The clients. It can happen. That's just one simple example. I'm trying to encourage you to think about more than what you can see. Your vision can come to pass. So let me just make this a little bit more tangible. Let me share a little bit about Strive and what's been going on with us. What Strive did to create more leaders. We changed the culture tremendously. I will not lie to you. It was the hardest part of my job. Fixing the numbers, fixing programmatic processes and procedures. I can do that with my eyes closed, hands tied behind my back, and my feet duct taped. That's easy. I've been doing it for years. The hardest part of my job was changing the culture. Getting people to think and behave different. People who've been a part of Strive for years. Mind you, I'm new, not only to CRI, I'm new to Connecticut. I'm still adjusting to the culture. I come from a bigger city. That's offensive to a whole lot of people. I've learned the hard way. My Philadelphia ways of doing things is offensive. And when you're trying to push culture, people push back because they look at what you are not. You're not a part of Strive. You're not from Connecticut. You don't know Scott as long as I have. You don't know the people I know. You don't know the clients. You don't know this. You don't know that. You will hear a lot of that. And you got to persevere. Changing culture is a heavy lift. You have to be steadfast in your vision of what you want to see happen in order for that to come to pass. You have to be consistent. And get this, as a leader, you have to model the change you want to see. You have to hold your staff accountable and yourself accountable. We would have meetings and people would show up 5, 10, 20 minutes late. And they will give you every excuse in the book. I was hammering that. I was just on it. I would stop meetings. I would shut meetings down. I would reschedule meetings because you were 1 minute late. But it didn't stop there. When I was late, I called it out. I held myself accountable. Didn't matter what I was trying to do. Maybe I was trying to save the world. Didn't matter. Because if being on time mattered to me, then I need to hold myself accountable in front of everybody else. I need to embarrass myself just like I would everybody else. You got to walk the talk. Because people will challenge your leadership and your authority. Eventually, it changed. People thought I was hard and mean and all these other things. But it mattered to set a standard. What does it look like if you get on people for not submitting reports on time and I can't get something to Scott on time? Now, they would never know that. But you know that. You can't be a hypocrite as a leader. You got to walk the talk. To this day, my staff feel comfortable calling me out for things that I don't do. And I got to sit there and take it. Because it matters to me that they're paying attention. Because if they can point it out in me, they can point it out of themselves. Changing the culture was a big deal. I encourage a lot of self-leadership. Leadership is about influence, influencing other people to achieve a goal. Self-leadership is about influencing yourself to achieve a goal. Man, that's hard. There are 3 components of self-leadership. There are mental strategies, how you think, how you envision, how you remind yourself, how you talk to yourself, what you say to yourself, what you allow in your eye gates and your ear gates. The second strand of self-leadership is behavioral strategies. How do you execute what's in your mind? You ever had one of those moments where you envision, you know, as a kid, I wanted to do backflips. Because as a kid, you know, if you knew how to do backflips, you automatically knew how to do karate. Like, that's where it was in the 80s and the 90s. And so I envisioned it in my head. But the reality and executing that was just like not happening for me. It didn't happen. I mean, I can jump off of a step, didn't work. I just couldn't physically get my legs over my head. Like, I just couldn't make it happen. In self-leadership, you can envision it and then you can execute it. You can envision a backflip and you can execute the backflip. It doesn't mean it's an automatic one-to-one. It will take time and practice. You will fail. But the idea is that if it's in your mind and if it's consistent, your body will respond in kind. When I moved here 4 years ago, I bought a road bike for the first time because I said I wanted to get active. It was between swimming and road biking. Now, road biking is an interesting sport because you're riding on the road. What I didn't account for was I bought the bike in Philadelphia literally the day I moved, and I stuffed it in my car and drove up. What I didn't account for were the hills in Windsor. Like, y'all think Waterbury is bad. Windsor's pretty hilly. So I got out my bike and had my gear. Man, I was looking good too. I mean, I was matching. And then I went up Pequannock Avenue, if you live in Windsor, and I was going towards where the Buffalo Wild Wings were. And then there was these little hills that I took for granted in my car. I mean, you know the little hills that go up and down? Yeah, the moment you get on a bike and the grade increases, it's a dramatically different experience. I felt like a little punk because I couldn't get up this little hill. But before then, literally 6 months before I bought the bike, I watched nonstop YouTube videos of what it means to road bike. Because I wanted to know what it was like. Like, I want to see somebody's GoPro latched onto their bike so I can visualize this thing. And then I bought the bike, which set me back a whole lot of money. Bought the gear, set me back even more money. And then I just got on the bike and started working. Got to the point where my legs got strong enough and the little hills don't matter anymore. I can ride for a long time now. But it takes practice. It took me almost a year to get up to the courage to ride from where I live to Massachusetts and back. Your mind sets the target. Your body will respond, but you have to practice. As a leader, you have to practice. Every day, you got to practice connecting. You got to practice envisioning. You got to practice strategizing. You got to practice influencing. It does not happen the moment you wake up and say, bing, I'm a leader. That's not how that works. It is constant practice. And yes, in the voice of Allen Iverson, we're talking about practice. Yes, practice matters.
Hey family, I just wanted to cut in real quick into this talk and just say hey and remind you that this is an audio only broadcast. I want to encourage you to turn the sound up and listen to this important conversation. The hope is that these resources, this conversation about how to manage your nonprofit through difficult times is connecting with you. If you haven't done so already, I want you to share this broadcast by sharing it on your timeline. Share it with someone that you know who is in the nonprofit industry. Maybe it's you, but don't be selfish. Go ahead and share this with somebody who you connect with, who needs to hear this message. Again, this is an audio-only broadcast. Turn the sound all the way up. One more thing. As you're going through this conversation that I'm having with a bunch of leaders around the state, I want you to leave your comments below. Let me know what's going through your mind. Let me know what you're thinking about. Let me know what you're processing. And let me know what you're starting to resolve as you start to hear the various components of leadership versus management and how to interact between the two, but also how to implement one or the other, or sometimes both, so that you can lead your organization through challenging times. With that being said, let's get back to our broadcast.
Nonstop. You will fail. You will make mistakes. It matters. Over the year and a half, I've been practicing even more. I'll talk to Scott, run things by him, realize made a mistake, go back and practice. Get at it again. Here's a third step to self-leadership, and this is the final step to self-leadership. It is the rewarding process, self-reward. There has to be something along the journey that turns you on, that makes you excited, that gives back to you naturally without you paying for it. For me, when I was riding my bike, I made the mental decision to do it, then I made the physical decision to do it. But the reward for me that I didn't count for was the quiet time I had on the road. Now, I have 3 children. And if you have a child, your life is not your own, let alone if you have 3. And I would say to my wife, hey, I'm going to go for a ride. What I discovered was that being on the bike not only made me feel physically better, but that was literally the only time I had to pray and to meditate. Because it was just me, my bike, the road, and nature. My God. Right? My God, the way I believe, He created all of this. And I noticed when I looked at the trees and the flowers, the birds, the foxes that run out in Windsor, never seen that before, the bears, just scary, right? It's like an interaction with the God that I believe in. And I found time to pray that I just couldn't find anymore. That reward is enough to motivate me to get out of my bed and ride. At work, my reward is to see my team win. Every one of them. to see their careers grow and advance. That excites me. I've told my team for over a year and a half now, I dare you to steal everything that I'm teaching you, because when you move on to your next place, you'll have a running start of good content, good information, good procedures, good philosophies to be leaders. I live for that. What do you live for? What excites you? What turns you on? What gets your juices going? What gives you energy when you want to quit? For me, it's my team. What is it for you? And then lastly, we provided ongoing coaching. I have a coach, Scott. He's my coach. That's what he's there for. But it's my job to pay it forward too. Non-stop teaching, non-stop coaching, non-stop sharing. The sharing process is how you also practice. It'll let you know if you believe your own crap or not. So we coached a lot. In literal terms, here's the impact of what happened to Strive. So in 2016, we didn't have much of a placement rate. We had a few placements. But we noticed in 2017, when we started implementing this culture shift and the changes we made, that we had a 53% placement rate. Now, if you're not in the workforce development world, that might not mean anything to you. But for folks who work in the workforce development world, that means a lot. You want to get clients to your program. You want to get them placed in their area of choice, whether it's an ongoing learning opportunity, whether it's with a partner or in employment. 53% was where we landed. So far in 2018, we're at 73, 75%, and the year's not even out yet. That's a dramatic growth. It's consistent too. Before I came, we would see significant drop-offs in the beginning of the training program. We barely lose clients the moment we start training. And all this happened because we changed the culture. The difference between management and leadership. So we've seen 22% growth. As I said, we created a culture focused on 3 principles. These 3 principles that my team knows. We managed time. We focused on content delivery. We would train weeks on end with no end in sight. We would just go for weeks and train, but we focused on time, focused on content delivery. And then lastly, personally, we focused on relationship management. We did focus on relationships with each other, and they do get along very well. But my focus was actually on relationships with external stakeholders, such as some of you in this room. It made a difference if my team was able to get along with you and to share information with you and to partner with you, because that relationship would lead to programmatic success for the both of us. If we didn't respect your time to show up on time for a meeting, or we didn't respond to an email within a reasonable amount of time, or we didn't return your phone call or your text message, we were being disrespectful to you. And we were guilty of that. So we changed that. And now we manage our time way better. And then we'll focus on our relationship management. Responding to your emails, your text messages, your phone numbers, your phone calls. But then also, Scott will chuckle at this, we gotten pretty good at having coffee with people. Coffee is our way of connecting. Just going somewhere. We won't be able to afford to buy you lunch, but we'll buy you a cup of coffee. We do work for a nonprofit, But it builds relationships. Going to visit you. Going to serve your clients at your place of work instead of having your clients come to us, so that you can trust us, so that our name can be respected again. That made a significant difference in how our programs changed and evolved. We focused on improving our recruitment. We started to change how we recruited, the strategies and the tactics that we used. Some of you represent different types of agencies and programs. You're going to have to figure out what works for you. For us, we figured it out. We focused on key recruitment channels. Secondly, we improved our partnerships and relationships with people to ensure clear and relevant placement opportunities. And then we created simple scheduling for program delivery. Sometimes we do complex things for people who really want simple things. So that made a difference. One of my goals last year that I shared with the team was I wanted to have 12 training sites going on. So last year we started with 3 core sites. In the middle of 2018, we're now at 8. Next year, I want to be at 12. I want to see Strive all over this state. And part of the way I'm going to get there is by meeting you. You meeting me, you being here at this conference, you getting a sense of who we are, trusting us, getting to know us, and inviting us to serve your clients. I want to be at 12. I want to serve your clients. I want to help your clients get better. I want your clients to be Strive ready. That means they're ready for work. They have the right attitude for work. That's our goal for next year. And then sustainability. Last year, we had about $400,000 of revenue coming in just for Strive alone. This year, we're at about 627, and the year's not even out yet. Next year, I want to be closer to 1 million. I want to keep jobs, right? Scott has enough to worry about. I want to do my part to raise money. I want to write grants. I want to do fundraisers. I want to make sure that the folks in this room are able to keep their jobs and keep their homes, keep their cars. And I want to see more people hired. This is my part. All right. This is something that we're not so good at, but we're trying to get better at. Our presence. Last year, we were posting about 8 times a month on social media. This year, kind of dipped a little bit to 3 times a month. But I want to see it. I want to see us posting 12 times a month about Strive. Good things. Graduations, people getting jobs, people's lives being changed, our community service projects, the quality of the program. I want to see that happen more. Bobby will talk about that later on today, how to do that, how to get us to the point where we're marketing and changing perception about who we are. Now, the question you may be asking me is, how do you develop leaders in your team? Here's a simple formula that I use. You need to develop self-leadership. You need to have leadership coaching, and then you need to engage your team in strategic thinking and planning. Just to highlight this a little bit, one of the things that's always been something that bothered me is when leaders don't include the right thinkers in a room when they're making decisions. You ever been in a situation where somebody made a decision for you or for your program and it was like the wrong decision at the wrong time and it messed up everything, and now you got to fix it?
Yep.
Now you got to sell it to your clients. Now you got to take the heat from your funders, and it really wasn't your fault? Don't you hate that? Yeah, I hate that too. So what we decided to do was include our team in all of our thinking as much as possible. Simple things. How do we want to position this particular program to our funder? What funding solutions can we go after together? What partners should we talk to? How should we approach them? Is it a team approach? Should one person go? What supplies do we need? Keeping it simple, all right? What do you have that I don't have? More complex decisions. How do we share clients between programs? How do we connect a client to a different program? Which program should we select for our clients to choose from? I do my best to include my team in almost every decision I make. It makes a difference because they own part of the process. And then if I can't do something because I'm busy, I can now share that with them, and they can now make those decisions on their own and tell me what they think. And generally, I'll trust their judgment. In your programs, if you're leading a program, you might want to explore this, including your team in the thinking process. And if you're a leader or the leader, you might want to try shutting up, just listening, guiding the conversation as opposed to telling people what you want to see happen. There will be times where that matters, where you need to just cast vision and speak truth to power and make it happen. But there are plenty of opportunities as a leader where you can just process, guide the conversation, and allow your team to contribute. So here are a few tips. And if you are developing leaders, or if you're going to start that process some way, somehow in your organization, you need to figure out how to measure the quality of your leadership development process. I provide 4 quick tips here that can help you along the journey. Does your leadership system align with the context of your organization? You can't just develop leaders for the sake of developing leaders and it doesn't make sense for your agency. What's the mission? Vision and culture of your organization? And are you developing leaders to digest and to spew out at any given time this mission or vision? Are their leadership behaviors aligned with the mission of the organization? Are the leadership functions you're developing aligned with the culture of the organization? If you're teaching people to do something totally different from the culture, you're going to fail. This is a personal thought. At any given time, Scott can shut down anything I'm doing. He's the boss. To alleviate that, I do my best to do things that align with his thinking as much as possible. Maybe you're a CEO in this room. Your boss is your board chair. You got to do things that align with their vision. What I'm trying to say is everybody has a boss. And you have to align what you're doing with the organization so that there's symmetry. One of the biggest compliments I got, well, there's been a couple since I've been here, but the most recent one was when we had a funder come visit us in New Haven this week, and our board chair was there. And Marcus was there from our team, and our grant writer, Angela, our the VP, was there. And our board chair gave some feedback to Scott about what he thought happened. And he said that he was impressed with how things went. He was impressed with the conversation, how we planned, how we prepped. The way I interpreted that was he was impressed with how much we aligned with Scott. Because in his absence, we said what Scott would say. We did what Scott would have done. And not because we're brown nosers, because that's not what we do in Strive, but because we believe in the vision that he's setting. Workforce development, job opportunities for all people. Great. And one of those ways to get there is through Strive. We drank the Kool-Aid. We believe in Strive. I don't do anything outside of that disaligns with CRI. That's a challenge for you. You got to make sure what you're doing is aligned there. Secondly, you got to make sure your leaders are coached to influence their direction, alignment, and commitment. You got to make sure your leaders are coached to align, to have direction, alignment, and commitment within themselves. If they don't have that, they will be burnt out. Third, does the system promote leadership maturity through progressive leadership assignments? If you're giving people to-do tasks or things to check off on your to-do list as a leader, and it's not helping them grow in their leadership thinking or responsibility, you're doing them a disservice. If you're not giving people tasks to own, you're doing them a disservice. And let me go deeper. If you give people a task to own and you can't help yourself but get involved and take it back and messy it up, you're doing them a disservice. If you give somebody something to do, here you go. Thank you. You know what, Jared, give that to me. Here you go. If you give something to somebody to do, do not take it back. Let them figure it out. You coach them along the way. You teach them how to use the buttons. You teach them what they do. But you can't take it back. This is what we see a lot of leaders do. We give something, we take it back. Here it is. And then we give it, and we take it back. You know what that does to the employee? It creates confusion. They don't feel trusted. The goal is to get them to mature in their leadership, to take responsibility. In order to do that, let it go. In my opening statement, I thank Scott for his support. One of the greatest things he's ever done for me is to give me Strive and step all the way back. For him, that's a big deal because Strive is his baby. He was the first in the state of Connecticut to bring Strive to Connecticut. He loves Strive. The best thing he could ever do for me is to step back and let me do my thing and trust me to do it. I challenge you. I dare you and your teams to do that because your leaders under you will mature along the way and they'll grow. And then lastly, our leaders cultivated to develop new and innovative thoughts. Some of the best ideas I come up with are not even mine. They belong to the team you see sitting behind you. I'm not that smart. I'm not that creative. But the people that sit around this room come from various walks of life, various experiences that are totally different from Strive. And what that does is they bring all of that outsider thinking into Strive, and it makes us better. Don't contain innovative ideas. Embrace them.
Hey, family, I want to thank you so much for hanging in there with me, listening to this broadcast, How to Manage Your Nonprofit Through Difficult Times. My hope is that it connected with you, and my hope is that it resolved some challenges for you. My hope is that you begin to process through some challenges that you've been working through, but didn't know that others struggled through it too, and that there are some solutions out there that are literally at your fingertips. If you want to find more resources, I want you to visit me at drwilliampclark.com. Again, that's drwilliampclark.com. And I want you to go ahead and grab my latest book, Built to Fund. That book and that workbook was designed specifically for you to start to think through some of the strategies that you can implement today to raise money for your organization and to sustain for the long haul. Your customers, they need you. Your staff, they need you. Your board, they need you. Your community, they need you. Stakeholders, they're looking for you to keep the doors open and stay around a while longer. And if you are on that trajectory where you're trying to strategize about next steps, go ahead and get my workbook, Built to Fund. It is there and available to you and for you on whatever platform that you purchase your books. Again, go to drwilliampclark.com to get your copy. With that being said, thanks again for hanging around.